Welcome in to the March 5th, 2026 edition of Brandon's World. As always, we are in collaboration with the one, the only Voltage Live. My social media links are in the description below. Today, because we are about 5 or 6 weeks out from the start of the NBA playoffs, I am going to take a look at the top 10 odds for the NBA teams to win the championship this year. And instead of doing buy, sell, or hold, we're going to do a simplified version of that with stock up, stock down. So essentially, if I say a team's stock is up, that means that team has a realistic shot this year to win the NBA championship. We know the NBA has had parity over the last 7 years. A champion has not gotten back to the conference finals. It's a very different NBA because of the second apron and trade exceptions and restrictions and all that than what we had a decade ago. Um, Now, this year, I do believe, spoiler, that the best teams in the NBA, as most people do, are in the Western Conference. But if a team has any inkling of a shot of winning the NBA championship, I will say stock up. If I do not think they have a shot to win the title, I will say stock down. Again, these are the based off the top 10 odds of teams currently, as I'm recording on March 1st, to win the NBA title this year. So, we're going to start with the reigning, defending, undisputed NBA champion, Oklahoma City Thunder. I just said, the last seven NBA champions have not reached a conference final. That didn't mean the teams like the Celtics or the Nuggets, or the 2020 Lakers or the 2022 Warriors or the 2021 Bucks that they didn't have a shot to win the NBA title. So definitely stock up for Oklahoma City. Obviously, if they don't win the title this year, it's not going to be viewed as a disappointment. However, I did say that last year was their year to win the NBA title because I said the West was only going to get better. And I believe I'm right on that. I think that, again, at least the top three, and I think you can make an argument for the top five teams in the NBA this year, are all in the Western Conference. They obviously got off to that tremendous, historic, what was it, 24-1 start. At the time, I said there's a chance they could break the Warriors 73-9 record. However, obviously, injuries to Jalen Williams, Shea Gilgious-Alexander sort of stopped that run. They still have Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, the other Jalen Williams, Isaiah Hartenstein, sort of role slash bench players. This team is still deep. Mark Daigneault is one of the best head coaches in the NBA. SGA is having another MVP like season, though I don't think, and because of injuries and what the Thunder have done without him, I don't think he's going to win it. And Isaiah Joe, I forgot to mention him as well. He's still there and he can knock down big shots. So I'm not saying they're going to win the title this year, but there's no way they don't have a shot. Stock up for Oklahoma City. The number two best odds. Now, I will say I don't have them as having the second best odds personally, but I do think there's a shot to win the NBA title. That is the Denver Nuggets. When you have the best player in the NBA, I believe that you should always have a shot to win the NBA title. And while SGA has burst on the scene and Victor Wembanyama has been incredible this year for the Spurs, in Denver, they did stay afloat without Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray has had another excellent season. I've always said I think he may be the most underrated player in the NBA. For Denver, 2 years ago, that Minnesota series was a back and forth incredible series. They were down 2-0. They got back up 3-2. They choked the 20-point lead in game seven. It's going to come down to, listen, we know what Jokic and Jamal Murray are generally going to do. How much help are they going to get? Is Cam Johnson going to be an upgrade over Michael Porter? To me, that's the biggest question. Cam Johnson was balling out in Brooklyn the way Michael Porter is doing currently. Um, but obviously, he hasn't been healthy and he hasn't been as productive in Denver as people would like him to. Don't forget, this Nuggets team did take OKC to 7 games a year ago. So I wouldn't have his number two odds, but I would say stock up for Denver. The number three odds belong to the San Antonio Spurs, and I would absolutely say stock up to this team. Victor Wembanyama, very similar to LeBron James. Well, LeBron, the first 2 years in Cleveland, did not make the playoffs. The next year, in 6 games, gets the Cavs to the semifinals. They lose to a great Detroit Pistons team who would wind up losing to the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. That was the year where Miami was down 0-2 to Dallas. Dwayne Wade and Shaq then win 4 straight to win the title in 6. But Wembenyama, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, who's the one veteran, and then obviously Dylan Harper. There's a lot of young talent on this Spurs team. There is a question, though. This Spurs iteration has never gone through the wars of a playoff series. Very rare in the NBA do you go from no playoff experience to getting to the NBA Finals, let alone winning it. But it's also hard to imagine a team in 4 out of 7 games beating this Spurs team right now who play efficiently. Mitch Johnson is like a younger, more hip version of Greg Popovich. The way you could argue Mike Vrabel is a younger, more hip version of Bill Belichick. So the Spurs used to be boring, old, monotonous, and yes, they won 5 championships out of it. Victor Wembanyama, unlike Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, the Wemby, Stephon Castle, and I guess De'Aaron Fox, big three, are fun to watch. They play good defense. They can shoot the ball. This is not a Spurs team of the past. This Spurs team is good. They're here to stay. They absolutely have a shot. I would put them over Denver. And to be honest with you, I think they have a better shot of winning the title than OKC this year just because of the NBA's recent track record. I think they are the best team in the Western Conference, if not the NBA. The next team, the Boston Celtics, who my answer to you is going to be a strange answer because I do feel like they have a shot to win the title, but I am contemplating whether or not they have a better shot to win the title if Jason Tatum is out or if Jason Tatum comes back. Because Jaylen Brown has absolutely proven his worth. For years, I've had him on a fringe top 10 player. I still think he is a fringe top 10, 11, 12 in the league. I've said for years I think he's the better player. I think if I want him to take the last shot more than Jason Tatum, Derek White is still there. Peyton Pritchard is still there. This is a team that, got rid of Drew Holiday and moved off Kristaps Porzingis and moved off Al Horford and a lot of these big contracts. They move Alfred Simons at the trade deadline for essentially for Nikola Vucevic, who has not been as productive in Boston than he was in Chicago, but he's still a very good player. This team plays very well together. I think Joe Mazzulla, I like what Tyronn Lue did in Cleveland. I think Joe Mazzulla is a very underrated head coach. Boston is not as reliant on the three as they used to be. And I just wonder if Jason Tatum comes back, it sort of disrupts the flow of this specific team. However, Jason Tatum wants to come back because he realized if the Celtics won the title without him, that immediately decreases his value. Sort of like a Carson Wentz, Nick Foles 2018 Philadelphia Eagles situation. So the Celtics absolutely have a shot to win the title. I actually think their odds, though, go down if Tatum returns this season. Next up, you have the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, before the trade deadline, I would have told you they absolutely have no shot. My hometown team to host the Larry O'Brien Trophy in 2026, a decade after LeBron brought the championship home to Northeast Ohio. But with the additions of not only James Harden, but I actually think the more important additions for this team, Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. Two guys that are coming off the bench, that can score off the bench, that can stabilize the bench. And the move with Harden not only allowed them to put Dean Wade in the starting lineup for more size, but that allows you to bring Jalen Tyson, who may be the league's most improved player this year, off the bench. And so you have Tyson, Schroeder, Ellis all off the bench. That's a lot more scoring than this Cavs team is used to, along with Sam Merrill, who's just incredible off those screens. One of the best three-point shooters in the league this year. Speaking of three-point shooting, Donovan Mitchell has made the most threes in the NBA this season at the time of this recording. The Cavs, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden. I am concerned about James Harden in the postseason. If the Cavs go 3-2, does he have another classic Game 6 and Game 7 meltdown? Donovan Mitchell has had some postseason meltdowns of his own, so maybe Mitchell and Harden can get over that second round hump together. Jared Allen is playing the best he's ever played. I still think this Cavs run is going to come down to how well Evan Mobley plays and if Evan Mobley can become the player that Cleveland fans know he can be. So I would not be surprised if this team got second rounded. I would also not be surprised if this team won the title. Stock up for Cleveland. And I feel the same way about the Detroit Pistons, who should feel disrespected that they are behind the Celtics and the Cavs in these odds because they currently have the best record in the NBA. The problem is, very similar to San Antonio, like I said earlier, Detroit is young. And while they got playoff experience last year against the Knicks in the first round, that usually is not enough to go for a war where you're in a hard-fought seven-game series, you lose in the conference semifinals, you feel like you need one piece away. Cade Cunningham is a superstar becoming of our eyes, but I don't think he's like the Victor Wembanyama face of the league type or a Luka Doncic or an Anthony Edwards. I do not think he's that good yet. Jalen Durham, I love. I think you can make a case right there with Jared Allen, Karl Anthony Towns. He's the best center in the Eastern Conference. His game is growing day by day. They got Karis LeVert, they got Azor Thompson, the brother, obviously, of Ament Thompson. But I don't know if they have enough superstar power and playoff experience combined with JB Bickerstaff has always been that coach that develops young talent and turns them really good and gets them to the second round. And then you need to fire them because you can't get them over the top. So I don't trust their coaching and I don't trust they have enough playoff experience. So if everything goes right, could they shock the world and win the title this year? Yes, they can. So I'll say stock up. But to me, it is very unlikely. Next, we have the New York Knicks, who have struggled a little bit in the second half of the season. They're down all the way at the fourth seed of the Eastern Conference. But I think Mike Brown was bringing it over Thibodeau, not for the regular season, but for the postseason. And can he get more out of Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, sort of the role players in the Knicks? Can Karl Anthony Towns find his groove in the postseason? We're gonna find out. I do think this team is a dangerous team that will play their best in the postseason when defense does matter. And the Knicks have a bunch of different wing defenders. They could throw it at Cade Cunningham. They could throw it at James Harden. Even in a, they're not going to have to deal with a Giannis Antetokounmpo, but they could throw it at a Brandon Ingram. I really think it depends on what seed this team is. If they're a four seed and they go up against Detroit, I actually like their matchup to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think they would match up well against either a Cleveland or a Boston. If you get to the second round, though, and you got to go to Cleveland or Boston, that's where it could get tricky. So I think it all depends on matchups for the next. But I absolutely do think the top four teams in the East, Detroit, Boston, Cleveland, New York. I think one of them is coming out of the East and nobody else. I think this will be one of the rare years in the NBA where we maybe don't have an upset in the first round besides maybe one. And so that leads me to the rest of these three teams. Houston, I'm going to say stock down, which hurts me to say because before the year, they were my pick to not only make it out of the West, but to win the NBA championship. I loved the addition of swapping out Jalen Green for Kevin Durant. I thought it meant Thompson was going to become more of age, and he still might. I think Sengun is slowly becoming their best player. Kevin Durant is still one of the best catch. He is still one of the best catch and shooters in the league. However, my concern with Houston was immediate. Excuse me. Once they lost Fred VanVleet, even before the season, I said that's it. They're probably not going to win the championship this year. They're probably going to get second rounded. But then the burner accounts of Kevin Durant happened. I don't know what's going on with Houston. It feels like there's bad chemistry there. It just feels like they're a good team. Ime Udoka's a good coach, but they don't do anything particularly special well. They feel like, again, a very good team that's going to compete hard, but I don't think they have the capability to win the title this year. That leads us to the number nine team on our list. That being the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm going to shock you guys here because I'm actually going to say that the Minnesota Timberwolves do not have a shot at winning the NBA title this year. And the reason why I say that is because the T-Wolves have been to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. They lost in 2024 to the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic completely owned that team. Then they lost last year to Oklahoma City. And yes, the T-Wolves have been through it. The likes of Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Luke on the same team in LA. Steph Curry in Golden State. They went through Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. So they've been through almost every star in the NBA. And they may even have to go for OKC this year. And they may get back to the Western Conference Finals this year, for all I know. And I like their bench. I like the addition of Nazizu from Chicago. I like DiVincenzo. I like Naz Reid. I like Mike Conley being the point guard. They have a lot of good players. Chris Finn's a very good coach. They don't feel as focused in the regular season, and Anthony Edwards, I think, sometimes takes his foot off the gas if he does not feel like he can legitimately win a playoff series. Anthony Edwards is one of the best talkers in the league. He's one of the best showboaters, high flyers. He's really fun to watch. And when he feels like his team can win, he takes his game to a new level. The last two conference finals against Dallas and uh, the Thunder, he has shrunk. Now it goes back to the conversation with the Pistons and Spurs. Do they have enough experience? But generally in the NBA, if you keep going to conference final, conference final, conference final, conference, and losing, look no further than Houston with Golden State. Eventually, you're going to take a regression. And I just think, to be honest with you, the Spurs, Nuggets, Thunder are all that much better than the T-Wolves. And I'm going to say stock down as well to the Los Angeles Lakers, who, yes, they have Luka Doncic. Yes, they have LeBron. Both I personally think are still top 10 players. Some people have Luka in the top five. I do not anymore. Some people have LeBron, outside the top 15. I think LeBron, on given quarters and given nights, is still one of the five best offensive players in the game of basketball. He just cannot do it as consistently as he used to. But this team has no size. If they match up against San Antonio or Denver or even Oklahoma City in the first round, they have no way to guard a Shen Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, let alone Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama. They don't have enough shooting. It's basically three guards, even though LeBron is a forward. He plays more like a point guard, especially at this point in his career, alongside Luka, who Luka and LeBron are going to get their numbers. Austin Reeves is going to get their number. But they really have to shoot the lights out each and every night. They don't have the talent. They're starting to lose close games. JJ Redick is starting to melt down in the media. The Lakers clearly do not want LeBron there anymore. It's going to be another one and done exit, in my opinion, for the King in Los Angeles, and that is best case scenario. I don't even think they win a round, let alone winning the title. So the seven teams I have that have a chance to win the NBA title this year are Thunder, Nuggets, Spurs, Celtics, Cavs, Pistons, Knicks. I do not think Houston, Minnesota, or LA, though out of all the three teams that I don't think have a chance to win the title, and there's one that could, it is the Minnesota Timberwolves if they get their right stuff together for four consecutive postseason rounds. So out of those teams, again, stock up Thunder, Nuggets, Spurs, Celtics, Cavs, Pistons, Knicks. Stock down Rockets, T-Wolves, Lakers. This is how I would rank those seven teams that I think can win the title. From 7 to 1, my favorites. At number 7, I do think it's Detroit. I said, I know they're the number one seed. And you guys know that historically, if you are the number one seed in the East, you have a real shot of getting to the finals, if not at least the conference finals. And in NBA history, unless you are a top three seed, you really don't win the title. Obviously, 8 seeds have gone to the finals. They have not won the finals before. The lowest seed that has ever won the NBA championship was the 6 seed Houston Rockets in 1995. Could be like a Minnesota Timberwolves team this year, though again, I think the West is too stacked. I just think Detroit, they don't have the coaching experience, they don't have the championship experience to overcome the more experienced teams in the East. At number 6, I think would be Denver because I just don't trust Cam Johnson at this point. He's been a shockingly bad fit in Denver. There's still Nikola Jokic dependent, in my opinion. Jamal Murray's great. Jokic is going to get his. Aaron Gordon, I think, helps, but maybe not enough for potential 28 games, 7 games every series. I just don't know where their consistent scoring is coming outside of their top two. Number five, I would say is Boston, just because Boston's a weird team. Um, they're a former champion. Jaylen Brown's had a great year, but it does feel like there's a Jason Tatum cloud sort of looming over these guys' head. I would put the Knicks at four because I think the Knicks are going to be a better playoff team than a regular season team. I think that's why Mike Brown was brought in to take this team to the next level in April, May, and June, not October through March. I think they're coasting a little bit through the regular season. Number three, I think, is OKC, who's really young. Looks like they're going to get another top 10 pick in this year's draft. I think history, though, is working against them in this new NBA. 7 straight years, we have not had a team, which the Celtics team, if it wasn't for Tatum, I don't even know if they beat the Knicks. And that's a good team last year. The Nuggets were a great team with Nikola Jokic. They fell to Minnesota. The Bucks dealt with a Chris Middleton injury. They were up 3-2 against Boston and lost that series in seven. So we've had some really good teams in good position to get back to a conference final and falter. I think it's going to come down to who does the Thunder face in the second round. Do San Antonio and Denver have to face each other, or do OKC have to go for both of them? And if they have to go for both of them, I don't think they will. Number two, I have Cleveland, who I think is playing the best basketball in the NBA right now. It's not just the James Harden edition, it's the Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder editions off the bench. And the Harden move, they've inserted Dean Wade also in the starting lineup. So now off the bench, you have Sam Merrill, you have Keon Ellis, you have Dennis Schroeder, you have Jalen Tyson, who may be the league's most improved player. That is one of the deepest benches in the league. I think Arden and Donovan Mitchell have both had some postseason shortcomings, obviously, especially in rounds two and three. Three for Mitchell or Harden, as Mitchell has never gotten there. Maybe they could get over the hump together. Again, Detroit, I don't think has the playoff experience. Knicks and Cavs, I think would be a very even physical series, though I think the Cavs have more stars. I would take Harden and Mitchell over Brunson and Cat combined. And then with Boston, it just sort of feels like, again, the Tatum cloud is leaning over them. And my favorite to win the title as of today, it's kind of weird because I said the Pistons, I think, would be the least out of all of these teams, and the Spurs, who have very similar playoff experience to Detroit, I think is the favorite. It's just the difference is the Pistons have a great 6'8" point guard in Kate Cunningham, who's really good, but I don't trust the other players around them and their coaching. San Antonio, I do trust the coaching with Mitch Johnson, who I said earlier, I think he is to Greg Popovich what Mike Vrabel is to Bill Belichick, if you want to compare those dynasties. And it's hard for me to imagine right now, 4 times in 7 games, someone defeating Victor Wembanyama. So, again, stock up, stock down, NBA playoff edition. I think that 3 teams, Nuggets, Spurs, Thunder, 4 teams in the East, Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, Cavs, they can battle it all out. I do think the winner of the NBA championship this year undoubtedly comes out of the Western Conference because they will be more challenged than the Eastern Conference. And that'll do it for this edition of Brandon's World. So again, thank you for joining me today on this March 5th, 2026 edition of the show. Have a good weekend. Enjoy all the sports. We were a week away from the NCAA tournament, maybe about a couple weeks away. And we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Peace. Like that clip from the Brandon's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon's World podcast right here on YouTube.